introductions of myself, even though I've been on social media and so forth. My name's Anthony Scott, but everyone calls me Scott. I'm a psychotherapist, and I've been working with families and young people for the past 20 years. In 2016, I qualified as a psychotherapist, and that's when I've kind of really developed a passion to understand the importance of therapy. So in our communities, therapy isn't something that people access a lot. And being a practitioner now, I think I've been blessed with the opportunity to really highlight and showcase this is what therapy is. And I think as a community, we all need therapy. We all have gone through different traumatic experiences, whether that is interpersonal relationships, whether that's generational trauma, whether that's sibling relationships. And I think for us to become the best versions of ourselves, we need to kind of dig a little bit deeper into ourselves and find out what is our drivers, what makes us tick, what is our stuff, what is our baggage, what do we carry,
Yeah.
and how does that impact us in our life. Why the therapy spot? For a number of years, I wanted to highlight what being a male black therapist is. And I've had loads of people stop me and ask me, why don't you do some type of public thing or podcast or a reel or so forth? And the idea for the therapy spot was to explore all things therapeutic. So I'm very fortunate that I have a large network of other therapists where I can get information, knowledge, wisdom. And I think I have a duty now to share that and share my thoughts and reflections. And coming from the environment that I grew up in northwest London on an estate called Stonebridge Estate. And for a vast majority of my adult life, I didn't live what we would call a pro-social life. I lived what we would call a pro-criminal life. So from the age of 13 up to 34, that's what I did for a living. And I was good at it. I was successful. Lots of trauma when you live that life. And one of the things and the pitfalls that happen when you are involved in that lifestyle is sometimes you have to go and what we call sit behind the door. And that means sometimes you have to do custodial sentences. And I've done a few. Am I proud of them? Yes and no, because all of that experience shaped who I am today. So one of the roles that I have now professionally is I go into organizations that work with young people, and I provide what they call clinical supervision. So I support the staff that are working with these families for them to understand the impact of the work on them. So they understand how their relationship impacts the clients and the young people and the families that they work with. And there's a book on the table, it's called Divorcing a Narcissist. And one of my therapist friends sent me that book. They sent me a extract from it. And I was reading it, and then I posted it on social media. And it generated lots of discussion. And then it dawned on me, actually, divorce, separation, moving on is something that is in our community, something that we don't talk a lot about because of the shame. And I met these two young ladies. Well, they are young ladies. I'm smiling now because I'm looking at one of the guests. And just before we started, I kind of just said, remember, we went to Copeland School together. We was in the same year. And
Same class.
Same class. And it was really weird. I had seen, and Alison's going to introduce herself and what she does. But I'm just going to give you the context. I saw Alison in church. Alison came to my church. Well, not my church, the church that I attend. And she said that she's done this book. And I was really interested because I wanted to find out what the book was about and what was going on with the book. And then I said, actually, let's meet up, let's try and get a conversation going. And that's how this subject came into the forefront. So today's kind of launch, the subject that we're going to be talking about is around divorce, is around separation, is around moving on, what that means. And before I go any further, I'd like to send a big shout out to a couple of people that have kind of, because even though I'm here, there's been some people that have given me some knowledge and some wisdom and like the motivation to go and some support. So there's a promoter, his name is Courtney, Mr. Sophisticated. He sponsored the show. He said, this is something that I feel passionate about. I want to support you, Scotty. So he gave me some funding to get the studio. I want to send a big shout out to one of my brothers. His name's Marlo Morrison. He's got his Legacy Lounge in a few weeks, the 7th of December. And he gave me the connection to the studio. And some of the other guys that are in the music industry, I've managed to have calls with them, and they've given me like, what does it mean to set up a podcast? So I spoke to Raymond from Fifth Avenue, and he was just giving me some of the technical aspects of what he has to do when he's doing his podcast. So sometimes our connections, they inspire us and they help us in different ways. So many people, even though it looks like I'm the face of it, there's people that has been behind me supporting it. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce our guest. I'm gonna give you the opportunity to A, tell us who you are, B, why this subject resonated with you, and we're going to continue the conversation on the back of that. So if I'm going to start here, this is
Alison. I went to school with Scott, and we've had a long history of friendship over the years. Off and on, we'll just bounce up with each other randomly. But yeah, I'm a personal chef and also an author. That's my titles amongst many, like mother and grandma. But this is basically what I do now. Because of an illness that I've been fighting with the illness for so many years, and it affected my catering. So now it's like I'm not really doing the catering full on anymore, and I was kind of depressed about it. And then it's like God was saying to me, "You've got another gift in you. And then it was like, "You write, so write." And it was like I just pulled myself into writing, and I'll post on Facebook sometimes, and my friends would just have a go at me saying, "Why are you posting on Facebook? Nobody's seen it on Facebook. You need to write a book. You need to write a book, get a book out." And I just thought to myself, let me see what I've got here. And I realized that over the years, and I've compiled so much different poetry, I realized I had enough for a book. And I had already written a book of memoirs beforehand, but it was sitting on the shelf, the manuscript, and not published yet. But I decided to go with the poetry one first, just to get a taste of the flow of publishing and what's entailed in it and stuff. And here it is. It's done. So,
okay. And for the audience that's outside, we've got some websites that are coming up on the live stream where you can see where you can get Alison's book. You can get it on, is it Amazon?
You could get it on Amazon UK, Amazon US, and Conscious Dreams Bookshop.
Okay. And you mentioned about going through the process and how this was part of your kind of
it was healing. A healing, because I wrote to release. So I was in a really bad marriage, and my escape route was, at the time, was either drinking or writing. Right. And I chose to focus on writing. I felt gave me more release, and it was like a therapy in itself. Okay. So while I wrote about, I journaled a lot as well. So a lot of the things that happened to me during the marriage, I wrote in diaries. So I've got diaries from 2009 to 2017, just writing incidences that happened, which I now have the material to put into a book, which is, and I know that nobody, the trouble is when you're married and to that person, it's very, they have a way of twisting things around to make it your fault, or you did this, or like you've done something's happened, and they twist it so much that they make you believe you done it,
Okay.
but I've written it down.
Okay.
So my mind is not going crazy on me.
Mhm.
This is what's happened. This is what took place. This is what you said. This is what I responded. This is how it happened. So I know I've got it in black and white,
Okay.
that I'm not doing guesswork while I'm writing.
Okay.
And even in the book of the poetry book, I've got a section on relationships and relationship breakdown,
Mhm.
which focuses on the marriage. Well, two marriages that I had that broke down. The second one being more for narcissism
Mhm.
type marriage. And I managed to write a few things down in poetry,
Mhm.
but not to attack, more to just let things be known. It's like I said, it's release.
Yeah.
And I know that by writing, somebody out there that's going through something similar to me
Mhm.
will touch base with one of the poems in there, will reflect on them on and be able to deal with it
Mhm.
and look at me and say, well, okay, if she can get through this, so can I.
Mhm.
And that's male and female alike. It's not just the female being the victim, males are victims as well.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
Definitely.
you've mentioned quite a lot. I think you beautifully articulated how when you're in a situation,
mm,
you can't actually see it.
mm,
And it's almost once you remove yourself, you look back at the history of the relationship and then you start pinpointing things and then you ask yourself all these questions. You mentioned the word narcissism, and that's the title of the book. And narcissism is such a wide, in-depth conversation. When I was thinking about this podcast, I was thinking, actually, that's an episode in itself
Yep.
because I've got some therapist friends and they are narcissistic, like specialists. That's what they focus on. They focus on the disorder and what it is. And there's different types of narcissism. And you've got healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is when you have a positive outlook of yourself. Your views of the world are not dependent on critiquing or putting the next person down. And then you have the Donald Trump kind of narcissism where that is your true narcissist, where
Yeah.
everything is about me. And if you look at his actions, very critical, demeaning, self gratification, these ideas of being grandiose and like just being bigger who they are. And I've got some information around narcissism, and I might read some of it around the different types: covert, closet narcissists, and those that are just outright there. And I think when you spoke about what happened in the marriage, what we will call that is almost like gaslighting. Like they're making you, and I think it was a movie from the 1930s or something where that term gaslighting came
I saw it.
about.
Yeah.
And there's so much work now and literature about narcissism. And as you highlighted, it's not just men, it's also women.
Yep.
So when we talk about narcissism, the general perception is it's males.
Yeah.
So in my therapeutic work, I speak to a lot of clients. And just to give some kind of context to the people listening, last week, so I have my professional boundaries. So I adhere to the BACP kind of code of conduct. One of the things that I won't do is I won't work with people that I know personally. It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But because of where I grew up, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people in my community, they'll reach out to me. And they know that if I have a conversation with them, A, it's confidential. B, they're not going to hear that conversation in any guise in any space that they are. And even though it's not a counseling relationship in its purest form, I do offer them support. So I'm in a group and there's lots of Black and Asian therapists in there. And sometimes people will reach out to me, I need a therapist. And I will say, okay, give me your details, give me what your presenting issue is, and I'll put it into the group and I'll see if someone will respond. So last week, someone that I know personally, we went through a divorce and it was a 4 or 5 year marriage. And he said, I'm having flashbacks of the stuff that happened in the marriage. I need to speak to somebody, Scotty. And what amazed me is when I started to think about this podcast was how much men contacted me
Mm.
and spoke about their relationships and not understanding what they experienced. And I suppose it's the same for a lot of women. And when you're in that, you really can't see how detrimental it is to your spiritual being, your psychological well-being, your physical well-being. And hence why we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the things that we have experienced or that we are aware of.
Yeah.
So, Alison, thank you for that, like, kind of summary of who you are. And there's so much things running through my mind in terms of what I want to answer you. But my other guest, this is Marsha. Marsha, tell us a little bit about you and how long you was married for, and what made you, your motivation to, I want to be part of this guy. I want to come on this show.
Okay, well, I'm Marsha. I'm a mum. I have a normal PAYE job, a 9 to 5. I have a daughter, loving family in respect of parents
Mhm.
and sisters and cousins. And the reason I went to join this therapy spot talk was because I came from a very toxic, narcissistic relationship of almost, I would say, about 14 years altogether.
Mhm.
We were together a long time, got married toward the latter end of the relationship, and kind of like, let's save this marriage kind of thing. I think he knew I was on my way out. I was just like, okay, well, yeah, what else can I do at this point? I've gone so far, might as well, kind of thing. Maybe it will work. Still clutching to hope, that things would still work out. And it didn't, obviously. The realization for me was quite shortly after my wedding, when I realized that I'd actually signed up myself for this for life. And I literally had a panic attack. Like,
So, I'm looking at Alison. Alison is
because Alison resonates with that whole thought.
Yeah, and like,
Oh,
the reason
my
why
days.
I'm smiling is because sometimes when you have these conversations, there's certain things that people will say, and you almost say, "Rah, it's the same." Like what?
Connection, you're my
Yeah.
twin.
Like you were the twin. Like you experienced this
Yeah.
together, and some of the traits and some of the things that you experience, there's lots of feelings behind it.
Mm.
So the reason why people are isolated when they go through this process is shame.
Yep.
So if you think about the Black community,
Mm-hmm.
when we're married, and I had some data around marriage, if I just kind of put it into context. So this was data that I collected from the 2022 census. So in terms of marriage rates, divorce rates have gone down since 2017. But in terms of the marriage rate, the highest proportion of marriages are in the Asian and Bangladeshi community. They're at about 60%. And then next is white. They're at about 40 something, 47. And then last but not least is Black people. And when they say Black people, they've put in Black African, Black Caribbean, and we're at about 27%. So our marriage rates are lower than everybody else. But what does marriage signify to a lot of people? When you get married, it's almost like respectability.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's this thing about, I've got to make it work.
Yeah,
Yes.
And when it doesn't work,
100%.
there's all these
Yeah.
feelings that you have, feelings
Yeah.
of shame, feeling of failure, feelings of sadness. So you go through a raft of different emotions that you experience. And there's the legal aspect of the divorce as well. And we can do a little bit of conversation around what that actually looks like from, two people that are saying, actually, this isn't working. We're going to go our separate ways. And it's an amicable kind of split. Or if it's not amicable, it goes through the court system. And if there's finances involved, it can be quite a traumatic experience. So, Marsha, you spoke about when you got married, it's like you almost thought, I'm going to, damn,
Yeah.
I've signed up for this for the rest of my life.
The realization hit me, and I was like, that inner talk you have with yourself. I was like, what have you done? Like, literally, like, what did you do? Why have you done this? Like, and all I could think to myself was, I got to get out of this. because I knew for years the relationship was wrong. I
Mm.
knew it was rotten, whatever. I knew it wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it wasn't helping me progress in any way. I'd burnt so many bridges
Mm-hmm.
by staying in that relationship, you know, and I just saw things turning. Besides getting married, I saw the children around us getting older. They're obviously picking up on that dynamic. You know, we can't hide it from the kids anymore. You can't buy them a lollipop and go to Wacky Warehouse and smooth it over anymore. You know, they're looking at mum like, they're looking at their dad, they're thinking, you know, is this the way that relationships are supposed to be? Is this how you're supposed to treat people? You know, and then you start to see the children's behavior changing because they're
Mm.
picking up learnt behavior, they're watching and they're learning.
Okay.
And those were significant issues for me.
Okay.
And we could not get on the same page.
Yeah. So you see, now my therapeutic mind is thinking, because I'm thinking about young people that I've worked with,
Yeah.
and where there's been some dysfunctionality in
Mhm.
terms of their moods, how they function. Sometimes it could be because actually things at home are
Mhm.
not that well, or relationships are breaking down. So these things have an impact on our young people. And sometimes we think as adults we're shielding them,
Mm.
but they can pick up on certain
Yeah.
things. So all of these things are kind of highlighters for people to think about their relationships and how healthy it is, and where is the relationship going. So you said you was married for 16 years?
No, together 14 years. And
Okay.
we were married literally about 3 years.
Okay.
Oh.
So
But
back
no, about
then-
2 actually, but we had to wait for a while before we could get divorced because of the time span and all sorts of things were going
That's
on.
right, you
Yeah.
wait 2 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to wait this out. But we waited it out separated. I couldn't do it living in the same house. It got messy.
Okay.
Yeah, and all the rest of it,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I actually had the strength to go all the way, because I had left the relationship previously,
Mm-hmm.
got drawn back in many times over the years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you leave, come back in, they do something diabolical to you, you go back. And that's how it used to always be. I had no boundaries, you know, I didn't stick to anything. By then I was just basically his puppet, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really the marriage, seeing the kids growing up, the dynamics changing, seeing some of the children get into trouble. It was a blended family. He had children from previous relationship.
Mhm.
I had a daughter from a previous relationship. And so it got to the stage where I said, this is not right. And it was a case, well, you do yours and I'll do mine. And I was like, but we're meant to be one. You know, I'm still
Mhm.
fighting for this united family, but you're on a completely different page. So we're not on the same page.
Mhm.
And I just said, okay, that's fine. They have to tell me twice. And that was the deciding factor.
So there's so much richness in what you said, and things that like I'm picking up on in terms of the process of divorce, because lots of people don't know what is the actual process.
Yeah.
Once you decide that actually we're going to separate, there's the process
Mm.
that you have to go
Yep.
through legally, because when you are married, it's a legally binding
Yeah.
contract.
Mhm.
So it's up in law that you are married. So once you divorce, you've got to go through that process.
Yeah.
So if I was to think about the process, would the first stage be like that offer of mediation? Would you attend a mediation session first to see if like this is it, it's finished?
It was pointless.
Yeah, for
Because
me, same.
every time with me it was more Christian counseling, so it was with the
Mhm.
pastors,
Mhm.
and they'll set up for us to have a counseling session, and we'll go, and he'll be as nice as pie, and the pastor will give him suggestions or give us
Mhm.
suggestions of what to do to help with, okay, this is what you're going to do this week, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. As soon as we come out the door, I ain't doing nothing. He just refuses point blank. When I bring it up in conversation, it'll be, I ain't doing that. No, so something.
Yeah.
His mood would be so different from what he would be in front of the person that's counselling us. And it got to a point where we tried. There was 3 different people that counselled us,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it wasn't going anywhere. And it was just like, in order for it to work, he had to do his part, but he
Mhm.
wasn't doing his part. And
Mm.
if he wasn't doing his part, I couldn't do mine
Mhm.
because it was like a catch-22 thing.
Mhm.
It's- if you break the circle, then I can't fix it because I
Mhm.
need you to do your part for my part to work. So it wasn't. In the end, I just I had to do my research secretly
Mhm.
about divorce and separation. To me, it was a shame thing. I didn't want to feel like it's my second marriage and to feel like I failed in the second marriage. That's where the guilt and the self condemnation came in because I felt like I can't even keep a marriage together. Look at me, it's a second marriage.
Mhm.
And he made me feel that way as
Mhm.
well that,
Mhm.
it's you. You're a bad wife, you're a
Mhm.
bad woman.
Mhm.
And I just had to fight that. Like you said, there's a lot of bridges were burnt. I became a loner where none of my friends would come to my house,
Mhm.
or because of him, my family wouldn't come to my house because of him, because I didn't like him. They didn't like how he was. And the minute that someone saw by accident his attitude
Mhm.
or something he did wrong, and he realized that they saw it, he'll discard them. He'll be like, no, we're not friends anymore. Switch off, enemies. That's it. So
Yeah.
it was, and I had to do my research, and that's when I found out about, like you're saying, you can't divorce for 2 years,
Mm.
but if they leave the marriage, if they walk out,
Mhm.
then it's called abandonment or
Abandonment,
something. So
yeah.
you can do it in less time, it's 6 months or so.
Mhm.
You can start the process. So I had everything going in my favor when it came to that,
Okay.
and
I think it was April 2002, the law changed around divorce. So before you had to have grounds, whether it was adultery,
Yeah.
abandonment,
Mm.
etc. But now you have no fault.
Yeah.
So anybody, so you can have an applicant
mm,
who can apply, and you can do it as a joint application
Mm.
if you agree, or a single person, not a single, one person
Yeah.
in the marriage can do it. So the first process of the divorce is you try mediation.
yeah,
And mediation works by, there's a mediation service. I think you can go online
mm,
and you can find a mediator, and you can both kind of agree you want to see the mediation. And the process is normally one person sees the mediator at a time,
Mm.
and they present what they think is a suitable kind of
Yeah.
agreeable terms for the separation if it's amicable. And then they meet together, and then they can sign or draft up a consent order. And then once they apply to the court for their marriage to be dissolved, they will look at that and say, right, it's consented.
yeah,
If that doesn't work, then you go down the legal route, which is applying to a court for a judge to almost take the power away from you, so
Yeah.
that it's in the court system's hand.
Mm.
And the piece of advice that I would give to anyone who's going through this process is to try and keep the communication and the dialogue open. But I know for some people it's almost impossible,
It's
because if
impossible.
you're working with someone that has challenges or some issues or narcissism in who they are, it's going to be quite difficult. I'm just getting a flashback of a phone call I had with a man 2 days ago. And I was trying to get him onto the podcast because I know that he's gone through a similar experience. And he said something to me, and it really kind of made me think. He said, the person who you marry is not going to be the person who you divorce.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
And I started to think, and then I asked myself this question, because I always reflect. And then I realized inside every person you know is somebody that you don't.
know. Yeah.
And one of the things that will normally make that person manifest is money. When money becomes involved in the mix, it will normally, the person who you don't know will now become clear and visible. And I listened to, like, in my days when I was in trouble a lot, I used to listen to DMX. And I speak to a lot of people about DMX. And I class him as an angel because of his trauma that he went through, but not just that, the amount of lives that he impacted. And DMX, he's got a saying: trust people to be who they be. So
Mhm.
when people show you who they are, sometimes when you're in these situations,
Yeah.
in your mind, you're almost trying to convince yourself that they're not.
Mm.
Yep.
But the reality is,
They are.
DMX said, trust the dog to be a dog. Even
Yep.
though they have dogs now that looks like cats,
Yeah.
it's still a dog.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it will bite you.
Mm.
So you know you got these little fluffy
Yeah.
things, them look like cat, but they're my dog.
Yeah.
And people think they can stroke it like it's cat. but
And
it's not, it's a
yeah,
dog. So trust
dog.
a dog to be a dog. And once you go through that process of the legal route, it can be quite draining, traumatic. It can be quite isolating. And
Mm.
some of the things that some of the guys, because I did a men's residential early this year, organization. No, it was a lady. She was running this. She was running women's retreats, and she wanted
Yeah.
to do one for men. And she asked me if I would come and facilitate some of the space. And I've gone down there, and there was a raft of different men there:
Mm.
black men, Italian men, Moroccan, like from the Middle East. And they were sharing their experiences with me. And one of the things that they shared was that they didn't know who they were when they left the marriage, because it's almost they became something else, and they had to almost figure out,
Mm.
who am I? And that process was part of the healing. And one of the things that I wanted to really kind of put into play here is the reason why we're doing this podcast is not to demonize or to chastise anybody. It's
Mm.
about actually part of my healing, part
Yeah.
of your healing is understanding what you've experienced and almost learning a sense of self-forgiveness and inward looking. So when I talk about therapy, therapy is about you.
Mm.
When I speak to people about this phenomenon about separation, relationships breaking down, I always ask them, what was your role in it?
Mm.
What is your accountability?
Mm.
So when we talk about the marriage failing, you have to ask yourself, what role did I play in that?
Mm.
And sometimes you have to face some uncomfortable truths
Yeah.
for yourself. So like when you was talking about the shame, Alison, and the pastor, in my mind, I was thinking about, that's the double whammy.
Yeah.
Not only do I have the community shame,
Yeah.
I got the church shame as
Yeah.
well, because but they are church, and the
Yeah.
church is saying,
And church is closed. It was literally my church first, because we got married in Trinidad,
mhm,
and I moved back over here
mhm,
as I was living in Trinidad for a few years.
mhm,
And when we came back here, I mean, he decided to come to my church. Obviously, they know me really well,
mhm,
and then he's coming into the mix, and it's very public.
mhm,
And obviously, I want to show that, okay, I'm married again, and this is like for real now. This is
mhm,
too
mhm.
good. And then when it's failing, and then people could see me changing in the sense of my personality, getting more withdrawn, not smiling as much,
Mhm.
not coming out as much,
Mhm.
no fellowships as much. It was very visible,
Okay,
very visible.
okay. And like, Marsha, I don't know what your experience was. What was it like for you when you were, okay, I've checked out now.
Mhm.
Like, in my heart, I know I've checked out, but I've got to be there. What was it like? Because you said when you separated, did you like leave the home? What was it like for you? What did you learn
So
about yourself?
in that time when I realized that, okay, I don't want this, this is not right, this is not healthy, started to accept the fact that didn't know what it was at that stage, still didn't know what it was, but I just knew this isn't right and I can't stay in this for the rest of my life and drag my daughter through this. So process for me was I started to save some money, whatever money I could save, which
Mhm.
wasn't an awful lot.
Mhm.
You know, I had to spend more time at my mum's house, you know,
Mhm.
not in the home.
Mhm.
The dynamic in the home was quite a lot. You know, I had stepchildren there, had a mother-in-law there. It was a lot going on. You know, it just felt like I was basically like backed into a corner.
Mhm.
And eventually stepkids kind of left. The mother-in-law, she returned back to the Caribbean and so forth, and took the youngest stepchild with her. Then it was just basically me, my husband, my daughter, and one other stepchild there. And it was like, no, you guys have to move out. And because unfortunately, the type of person that he was, he never really accepted the responsibility of being kind of married in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it sounds crazy, but there was a dynamic that we was in private rented accommodation, getting help with the housing benefit and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I explained to him, you know, sent him the links, all the information that said when we get married, you know, benefits and all this kind of stuff, it all changes, you know. Also, I'm not the type of person to be on benefits. I don't want to keep having this conversation. I want us to elevate and push forward and do different things. He's like, yeah, I understand. You know, I could have been talking to the wall as far as he was concerned. Obviously that day comes after we get married, realizes, oops, you know, he's now got to put more of his hand in his pocket, you know, start to find out certain things that I thought he had in place weren't in place. You know, we couldn't do a house swap from his council property because he was in rent arrears. And I'm like, how? Bad rent arrears that we had to actually go to court. Like, and I was like, this doesn't happen overnight. Like, I didn't know nothing about it until the court date, you know, wake up Monday morning, like, got to go to court today. Pardon?
And this is in the home that you live in.
Yeah, like, what do you mean we're going to court? For what? Rent arrears. How? What? You know, you're just like, you don't get to court overnight. So, like,
so it was, I'm getting a sense for you, there was almost a rude awakening that something that is really, really bad. And
I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad. I knew I had lost myself. I knew that it was basically, I had to get out. And also my gran passed literally about a year before I broke up with my ex-husband. And she said to me, like in hospital, I remember, she said to me, don't wait too long. In the typical family, like, oh, granny talking, what's she talking? What's she talking there? What's she talking there? But she was talking said, because I think I was the only one knew exactly what she meant. I knew exactly what she meant. She said, don't wait too long. She goes, don't wait till you get too old. And then you can't. She goes, don't. And I just knew exactly what she meant.
So, like, I suppose this is a reflection for the both of you in terms of being in this really kind of traumatic interpersonal relationship. There was a point where, what did I learn about myself? What did I garner? Because when people stay in those types of relationships, in that book, there's a quote in there, and that's what made me buy it. And the quote says, your perpetrator's teeth will fit your wounds. So that means you have your own wounds, and this person can see your wounds, and your teeth, almost predatory teeth, fit your wounds. So what were your kind of things actually? What was it about me that needed that relationship, that needed to be there?
Yeah.
What did you learn about your own trauma that made you stay in this traumatic experience? And it feels deep. That feels like a deep one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For me, I just didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be that wife.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that good wife, you know, or the ride or die, you know, wife to the end of time. You know, I've got my man's back. You know, we're here, we're building, we're doing this. We know we're doing this Bonnie and Clyde stuff. We're out there. You know, that's how I wanted to present myself. That's how I had fixated in my head in the world. You know, watching my grandparents together. Yes, they were together for a long time. Was the marriage completely healthy? You know, I beg to differ. But, you know, seeing that, thinking, okay, you stay together through thick and thin. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. But slowly, as I'm trying to get through it, I'm just disappearing. I'm acting out of character. I'm doing things that I wouldn't normally do.
When you said disappear, when you look back at yourself,
Mm.
is it that you got a sense? I was just becoming smaller and smaller. I just started to become
I'm coming
invisible.
invisible and almost kind of cloning into him, you know, picking up his behavior habits, you know.
To get back at
Yeah,
yeah,
you
like
know,
a tit for tat thing, that you're doing me wrong, but you know what, I'm going to match you and I'm going to do you wrong back,
Mm.
you
which
know.
is out of our character.
Yeah,
That's not
so
the
like,
person that I am.
So then when you're in this, it's almost as if you do lose yourself. So
Yeah.
when I was speaking to these guys, when they were saying to me, they had to reinvent themselves and who they were. And I was watching some podcast in America, even though it's across the pond. There were some guys on it that were married for like 20 odd years. And when they got married, they was in their 20s, and they said they just adopted this role. I am the husband, I'm the father, I'm the provider. They didn't even know who they was. So years down the line, when they're like 50 and they've become divorced, it's like, wow, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I really like, what I don't like. And there's so much nuances. And this conversation here, as I kind of reiterated, it's not about them.
no,
It's
it's
not
not.
about critique. It's about
No.
actually, what did I discover about myself? And part of that discovery is your book, is your growth in terms of when I started to do a little bit of reading about Marsha, I see all these pictures like dancing, carnival. And I said, you got this thing called Pon the Road. And I said,
Yeah.
what that mean? What does Pon the Road mean?
So yeah, Pon the Road is basically, that's my therapy. I started Pon the Road as I was going through this breakup, and it started as a little group on Facebook. You know, started talking about carnival, just going to some mass band launches, just trying to get in, remembering that I'm good at photography, remembering I'm good at videography, you know, just remembering that I'm a creative, because I had forgotten what I liked. I forgot I liked soca and carnival. I grew up in that community, hadn't been in it for over maybe 15 years through my relationship with my ex, totally out of it. It was my therapy. It was definitely my therapy. It took me out of my comfort spot, because I started the page. My friend was a photographer, and I said to her, I've got this crazy idea. She's like, do it. I said, you don't know what it is yet? She's like, yeah, just do it. She was like, help you. And I was like, let me tell you what it is first.
Yes.
Slow down, slow down. So I want to start like a little blog page on maybe Instagram. I think I'll take on to Instagram. I think it will work on Instagram. Just talking about like UK carnival culture. I go, but I want to do it from a good vibes place. I want to do it from a place where it has to feel good. We're not talking about black trauma. We're not talking about, you know, death, statistics, breakdowns, relationship. I just want to do something that people, when they look at it, give a little smile, makes them feel good for the day. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's cute. Oh, I like that. Oh God, I remember that song. Yeah, my granny used to play that song, or my granddad used to play that song. I just wanted to do something that evoked good feelings, because I had been surrounded and suppressed my feelings for so long, shall I say, of feeling good. And the only escape I used to have was basically once a year, is that I made it a point of taking my daughter to carnival from age 10. And every Sunday, Notting Hill Carnival was the one time I actually used to get away.
Right. So like your music and On the Road is like, this is my therapy.
Yeah, it's my happy place.
Your happy place. And like Alison, I'm getting a sense that your journaling and your poetry was your happy, and you spoke about your faith with the Father, your relationship with God, and how when I started to think about me, I became more strengthened.
Yeah.
And that process, that pain, that trauma that you've gone through in terms of two marriages, in terms of one marriage, in terms of my own, it's a continuous process of reevaluating your life and almost becoming a better version of you. And it's not about trying to prove anything to anyone. What I'm doing now is about yourself. It's about my enjoyment. It's about what I enjoy to do and what gives me kind of pleasure and gives me purpose. And, you know, I haven't trained for about 3 months. But when I went through my own process, one of my healing places was the gym. And it's really weird. our past lives, our past experiences kind of gives us some resilience.
Mm.
So like being behind the door a number of different times, you learn to detach from things because you understand nothing in this world is permanent.
Mhm.
So everything that we have is rented.
Mm.
So I used to work in this building in Wandsworth, the youth offending team. And it was opposite Blackshaw Road, the graveyard. And my office was right at the front. So for about 4 years, I used to see funeral processions regular.
Yeah.
And I never once saw a Brinksmat van or a security van in the procession. So everything that we have, we can't take it with us.
That's right.
So when you learn that detachment, you start kind of detaching from worldly things.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
you become more invested in becoming the best
Yeah.
version who you are for yourself.
Correct.
You want to be a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some of us, we have faith, and my journey into faith is quite new.
Mm.
My pastor, his name Pastor Andrew, is weird. I grew up with him. He was a DJ on a sound named Volcano. His name was Yuki General. He's a pastor now, and he's doing some phenomenal work in Northwest London. He's bringing a lot of people
Yeah.
through. He's opening our minds and our heart to our relationship with the Father. And my journey is a new journey. I'm almost like a baby
Yeah.
in the process. And when
Yeah.
you're a baby, you know, you don't get them yaman
No,
like
Not yet.
It's all like the weaning.
you wean them.
The
So
weaning.
now I'm taking a little bit
Yeah.
of baby
Mm.
food with scripture and so
Yeah.
forth. But when I mentioned the gym, a lot of the guys that I've spoken to, their process of growth
Mm.
was their physical exercise. And something that I realized around this process, men and women experience it in different ways.
Mm.
So, you know, when I think about growing up, women, they're usually kind of surrounded in emotional language.
Yeah.
And they've got their girlfriends and then they
Mm.
work and they speak about stuff.
Mm.
Men are kind of more
Closet.
reserved,
Mm.
isolated, and so
Yeah.
forth. So when this process normally happens, you'll find out a lot of men feel quite isolated. So the men that I've worked with, they told me about the isolation.
Mm.
Mm.
And then I was thinking about some of the real negative impacts of that. So when we talk about suicidal ideation, suicide rates, alcoholism, substance
Mm.
misuse, men generally go through it in an isolated kind of way. And I think when we start having these conversations, it brings it to the forefront. And as I said, just on posting that book on social media, I've had loads of men reach out to me. And some of them, when I ask them, do you want to come on this show? Do you want to?
Mm.
There's still that sense of,
Yeah.
I feel a little bit embarrassed because
Yeah.
you're a man.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
supposed to be there in this position. And I suppose now it's about the healing. That's where I
Yeah.
want to focus people who's going through any traumatic experiences around the self-discovery of self.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to become a better version of myself? What have I learned about myself? So I'm listening to you two talk. I'm smiling internally, I'm smiling externally because from our private conversations that we've had, I can just see the amount of phenomenal growth that you've had.
I learned to forgive.
Yes, that's
That is the key
important.
thing.
Forgive who? Forgive self?
I had to forgive
Yep.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
and
Both of you pointing
I
at it.
Yeah.
had to forgive
Wow.
myself.
I was so hard on myself.
And when I forgave myself, I was able to forgive him,
Yeah.
and I actually voiced that forgiveness to him,
Mhm.
and I actually speak to him now.
Okay.
On not regular, but you know, I could actually talk to him on a civil basis. I mean, we divorced since 2017.
Mhm.
We never spoke for ages.
Mhm.
And then one time I went to visit in Trinidad, and I was walking past, and he was there by the house,
Mhm.
and he came up to me, and we just started talking, and he was just saying how sorry he was, and
Mhm.
as they do,
Mhm.
and I just left it as that. But I felt like a sheet come down off me,
Mhm.
when I was able to do that
Mhm.
and just move on. And that's when I was able to just feel confident in myself to go out and write and do my I've got a Instagram page on my chef work and stuff like that. So I poured out into creating dishes and fine dining. There's a lot of fine dining
Yeah,
stuff that I
chef.
do. Yeah, that's what I'm.
Like that, you know me.
Mm.
You know what? I'm smiling now because I remember. I think it was about 2 Christmases ago.
Yeah.
You phoned me, Scotty. Can I get a rum cake?
Yeah.
So it's weird how food. I've
Oh, I
spoken
saw
about
that
this.
rum cake you posted on Facebook,
Listen,
and I was like, I think I commented,
yeah,
but I didn't
my
buy
rum
one.
cake them is they're quite
Phenomenal.
good,
Yeah.
and I
Okay,
got a lot of
nice.
people that. But again, it was just something that was almost like a hobby. Food
Yeah.
is a creative part of who I am, and when I've
Yeah.
spoken to lots of people, food is a part of their creativity.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then I asked myself, where does that come from in us? So growing up, we saw our parents.
Yeah.
Like if people came to your mum's house on a Sunday
Mm.
and they weren't no dinner to give them, they would feel so shame.
Yeah.
That is, so we've learned, some of us, that our love language might be through food. When
Yeah.
we're
Mm.
in a relationship, we will nourish that
Yeah.
person.
That's me.
Not
Yeah.
only with
Yeah.
food, but like with nourishment.
Yeah.
And the rum cake, and when I came to your house and you took it, and like you're speaking about being a chef now,
Yeah.
how you've poured some of your creativity
Yeah.
into that process. So I'm just going to remind the audience, on the bottom of the real thing that's on the live, we've sent out your links to your Facebook.
Yeah.
Upon the road, we have that. We've also sent out some information about services,
Right.
because this conversation could be quite triggering for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might leave people feeling quite exposed,
Yeah.
or feeling quite unsure. So I've listed like the BACP website, Batan, Marriage Relay. So all of that information should be
It's,
flowing along the screen. And if there's anything that anyone wants to ask, I think they could type in, or they could send us
Yeah.
some type of message,
Yeah.
because our contact details.
There's one thing that we didn't have on there that I should have given it to you as well, was when I got divorced, I got divorced online.
Okay,
and
tell me about that.
Listen, this is the best thing since sliced bread. So
Yeah, smart. We need to hear about this. We need to hear
Okay,
about
I didn't know.
this.
Mine came
So,
through the post, so
no.
but okay.
Divorce Online, so they do everything for you. It's a
Mhm.
company on the internet.
Mhm.
You get hold of them. It's literally no more than £500. It's like between £200 and £500. And there's different sections. Like if you want to divorce and you've got property involved, children involved, that's
Oh, okay.
one price. With
Mhm.
me, I didn't want anything. I just wanted out of
Mhm.
the marriage. I didn't care. I didn't want nothing. So I went through the simple one, and it
Mhm.
should have taken, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months. I managed to get divorced in 4 months, because every time the emails came
Mhm.
or the letter came through the door,
Mhm.
I'll sign it, and rather than post it, I'll drive. I drove and handed it back the same day. I wasn't messing around. I just wanted it over.
Mhm.
And then they delivered the divorce documents to my ex-husband.
Mhm.
They did it by email,
Mhm.
and they said that how they know that normally you have to hand it to them,
Mhm.
but just they have something on their email that they can see that they've received it.
Mhm.
So that's basically their proof that he's had the papers.
Mhm.
But he was going backwards and forward and just being silly about it,
Mhm.
and not being helpful in the whole process.
Mhm.
And then I applied to the court through online Divorce Online.
Mhm.
They gave me the details to go through the court to get a form
Mhm.
to sign that I can go ahead and do the divorce without him.
Mhm.
I didn't need his signature to do anything. So everything just went forward,
Mhm.
and I was able to do the divorce in 4 months.
Okay.
And they literally done everything that on the online. They give you a chart,
Mhm.
and it shows you at what stage you're at, They
Mhm.
keep you involved. They keep you informed. There's no courts. There's no middleman. There's nothing. You pay that one. I think I paid £299,
Mhm.
which is so cheap
Mhm.
compared to having to go through divorce the normal way.
Mhm.
And there was no trouble at all. And
Mhm.
it's the to me it was stress free. I didn't have to do with no paperwork. They did everything for me.
And I think that is a useful bit of information to have. And I think if you have two people where they are agreeable,
Yeah.
I think the issues around it becoming a real kind of uphill battle is when they're not agreeing. There's no
Yeah.
compromising, and
Right.
it becomes a real. It almost becomes like a battle of wits, of will,
Yeah.
of who's got the fortitude and the resilience to kind of deal with this. Because
And
as I said,
that's what happened in my situation, is that my ex-husband didn't think I had it in me
mm,
to do it.
mm,
And when I showed that this is what I am doing, and he went off the scale, and he wasn't cooperating and everything, and he didn't realize we were divorced for about 3 months,
okay,
because it went through. We didn't need his signature, so it went through, and he had no idea that we. And when he did find out, he hit the roof. And his thing was, how did she do the divorce? I was supposed to do it. I was supposed to do, because it was more for, he wanted to be the one.
and like when we think
Oh
about this, this
yes.
is why that book there, and when my therapist friend sent me that book, A, it was for research, and
Yeah.
B, it was just for knowledge. There's a next book that I've got there called The Four Agreements, and that book there, I use it in my clinical supervision. I use it in my personal life, and I kind of live by the Four Agreements
Yeah.
now. Like, one of the things that it says is never make assumptions. Always be courageous to ask questions.
Yeah.
The next one that I kind of stand by is it's never personal. So when things are said or done, it's not personal about
No.
you. It's normally somebody else's own views,
Mm.
understanding that they project. And as I said when we started this conversation, talking about narcissism, that is a show by
Oh,
itself.
It is. It,
Because
it is.
there is so much nuances, there's so much commonality that people could express and talk about, where people realize actually this is something that I didn't even realize I was in or that I've experienced previously. So that is like the kind of finding out about what this disorder is. And again, as I said, that forgiveness
Yeah.
of self is paramount, because once you learn self-forgiveness, it almost humbles you.
Yeah.
So it makes you become more understanding and probably more thoughtful of.
Yeah. It was painful.
Mm-hmm.
It was painful, but it's made me more compassionate to other people. Like, I feel like I can speak about my experiences without falling apart, without feeling guilty, or without condemning the other person.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happened. It happened.
It's life.
It's life.
Yeah.
It happened. Our marriage, we got married, it didn't work out. It happened. The things that went on wasn't great, but to me, it's like a learning tool, and it's made me stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and made me look into myself
Mm-hmm.
to know that what I would put up with and what I would put
Wouldn't-
up
yeah.
with. And it shows me basically what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life. So, in a sense, I wouldn't say I regret being in that marriage. I think I've learned so much, and it's made me become the woman that I am now, which is a stronger woman,
Mm-hmm.
and one that I see signs now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So
I'm
this
aware.
self-forgiveness has almost made you become more humble, more compassionate,
Yeah.
more humanistic, where now I can speak about my life and my experiences without feeling overwhelmed,
And not
without feeling
bitter.
bitter and
Yeah.
angry. And
Yeah.
when you're talking, because I'm looking at Marsha. Marsha's smiling, and a lot of what she's saying, I can see this resonates with me. Like I'm feeling.
Yeah.
This is-
Because it's a good space to be in, because there was a time I couldn't talk about this
No.
without breaking down.
Yeah.
There was a time I would have blamed myself. Why did it happen like that? Why did I, what did I do so wrong? Why me? Why me? And then also, how could I have been so stupid to have fallen for it? All those thoughts, going around in my head. And then why did you stay so long? Are you weak? Are you this? Oh my gosh, my marriage is breaking down. They're going to talk about you and your age, you're not going to find no one else. And then all these things go round in your head until one day you just realize what you was in. You realize how you got into it. You realize how you stayed in it.
Yeah.
And then you even realize the time when you said, that's enough. And then you started
And
to
you
make
have
changes.
to reach your enough. You won't get out of that relationship. You have to reach your enough.
Yeah.
You could have people that surround you, family or friends, and they can see what's going on. And they'll say, oh my gosh, Alison, this is you should do this and you should do that. And that's fine. And I'm hearing everything. But I had to reach that enough. I had to reach the point where I could fall on the ground, but there's no more ground to go. There's only way is up,
So you hit
or
rock
sit
bottom.
there, rock bottom, sit there, or learn how to climb up.
Yeah, it did feel like do or die, basically.
do
It
or
was
die.
like, either I get up and climb up from the bottom up, or I just stay here and literally just wither away.
And when you're down there in that bottom part, bitter, resentment, the ugliness, the thoughts that I had in my head.
Yeah.
When I started,
that's like the darkness. And when you're in that dark place,
and when you start climbing up towards that light, I tell you, the freedom in forgiveness is
paramount.
oh my gosh.
I'm gonna just jump, because before, when I was thinking about the podcast, I was contacting people and like asking them for some information and getting advice and like, give me some questions. I was gonna try and pose the questions to people that might be listening, but I got some questions and I'm aware of like the time that we have left, and I want to try and bring it to a kind of context to the ending and so forth. And there's a few questions. So I'm just going to reel off a few of them and just like really kind of short, sharp, sweet kind of responses. And I checked in with you guys before. Is there anything that I couldn't answer? And you guys are kind of open. So I'm just going to go randomly and choose one question each, and then we can ask. So, okay. At what point in the relationship did you feel that you was dishonoring your values or compromising your self-worth? All right, what was there a certain thing that happened, an event, a situation, a conversation where I'm dishonoring myself now? What is this?
Wow.
Okay, I can only answer this from reflection, because when I was in it, I would definitely say, okay, the red flag was there, but I ignored it each and every time. I would make up excuses. There got to a point where I was just fed up of hearing myself have the same conversation. I was fed up of having the same thoughts going round and round in my head. You have those internal conversations. Yeah, I was sick and tired of hearing myself.
So there was a point where I thought, actually, I'm doing this service to myself.
Yeah.
It was a light bulb moment. Okay. There's a next question. I want to direct this one at you, Alison.
Yeah.
I'm smiling. Knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
would you choose the same partner again?
No. No. I went through it once. I know what I went through for 7 years. It nearly killed me. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, every illy.
So that would be a definite no.
I can be friends with you, no problem. If you showed me that you've totally changed, maybe, but I have to see you totally change. It has to be a miracle of God. You literally, how if anybody out there that knows their Bible, how Saul changed Paul
Mhm.
on the Damascus Road,
Mhm.
and if God can change him from a persecutor of Christians
Mhm.
to a Christ himself, to be a Christian himself,
Mhm.
if that turnaround could happen to my ex-husband,
Mhm.
then sure.
Okay.
But no.
No, I'm gonna ask you. I'll read it. Can you just choose one thing from your book, one page? Normally, when I choose a book like that, I would just open it and whatever the spirit or God decides that that's the thing that's going to be read, then I would just read it and so forth. So I
Okay.
just want to ask if you can just choose one, and I'll do the reading of it. If
No problem.
yeah,
The Great Divide, page 84.
and don't forget, guys, the links to these books is scrolling on the screen at the bottom. So that book there, Divorcing a Narcissist, you can see that book there. I think the author is Dr. Supriya McKenna. This book here, The Four Agreements, is Don Miguel Ruiz. These books are available online and so forth. You've chosen one for me.
Yeah, The Great Divide. Sorry.
The Great
So
Divide.
there's one thing with me and poetry. I start writing
Mhm.
and the flow starts going
Yeah.
and the poems are long.
Okay.
They're just like stories, so you can read as
I'm
much
going
as
to
you
read
like.
some of the snippet
Yeah.
here. So this is called The Great Divide.
Yeah.
It's so one-sided and frustrating. Two separate families come together as one, but there is still an unseen separation, and something must be done. Why? When my son doesn't, the big man's face swells and shouting, flip's sake, how much more can he tell? But when his daughter doesn't do what she ought to, he's bawling out at me to shut my mouth. I've never seen his children wake up and straighten away, brush their teeth. But when my little ones say they want to eat, he tells them, what kind of example was set? You mean, you know what shows him out yet? Everyone wash and put away your own clothes. But as ever, one person, me, ends up folding all the man's clothes. Complain, he says. Do as I do and leave it right there. Yes, if I do, the pile will not clear. In the earlies when he came to visit, the moans and the groans and the sight of my dirty clothes, telling me, this won't do. Fix these kids before I marry you. But as I tell you now that we have tied the knot, things are not quite correct in the boulevard. Their clothes constantly taking residence on the chair. Everyone just walking past, nowhere to sit. As far as everyone's concerned, they've done their bit. I'm telling you this is real SIHT. Thank you for that, Alison, for choosing that. What I would like to say is it's been a pleasure just meeting you guys, reconnecting with you, Alison, from school, Marsha, seeing your stuff that you do on social media, and the confidence and the elegance how you guys speak about your journey now, and how this isn't about them. This is
No.
about my healing. And the reason why we did this is for people to have their healing. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being so courageous and transparent. And the key takeaway that I've taken from you guys today is around forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness of self, which
Yeah.
allows you to forgive others.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And from myself, what I would want to say is that doing this thing, the therapy spot, is something that has been in my mind for a while, where I think we need to be having more therapeutic conversations amongst ourselves, where people can almost kind of see us doing this thinking stuff together, which enables them to do more thinking about themselves. And that's the reason why the therapy spot is being born, and that's the guise of it. So this was our first endeavor,
Yeah.
and I'm hopeful that I'll be able to do some more. And I'm going to be in conversations with the owner of the studio that we are now in, and doing some continuation. So I'm having some conversations with some other guys. around coming and joining me. So I'm going to just give you a final word if there's anything that you would want to say, and then close this podcast. What would your kind of resonating thing be, Alison?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It was really refreshing to open up and talk about certain things that's happened and just let other people know that they're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
and there is hope, there is healing, there is life after separation and divorce. You can move on.
Mm-hmm.
You will move on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your life hasn't come to an end, and just just have faith. Have faith.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alison. And Marsh, what would be your closing kind of?
Believe in yourself. Believe that you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, believe. You know, the trips you wanted to do. You know, the dress you wanted to wear, the shoes you wanted to wear, the hat you wanted to wear, the person you wanted to go and see, the friend you wanted to reconnect with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the food you wanted to eat, the film you wanted to watch. You know, the paint color you wanted to paint the room.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. It's okay. It's all okay. It's all part of the journey. It's okay to have those worries that what you couldn't do before, you can actually do now.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's
You know,
okay.
just trust yourself. It's okay. Start believing in yourself and start believing that things that you do, it's okay.
It's okay. Okay. So forgiveness, and that is okay. And for me, it's around trust the process, because the
Yes.
process of growth is a continuous process. And we are fortunate that every day that we are given the opportunity to become the better version of what we was yesterday.
Yeah.
So this has been Scott, who is a therapist. This has been Alison, who's an author. This is Marsha, who is upon the road, who's taking music and dance to the next level. This has been our first kind of foray into the therapy spot, and they've supported my endeavor. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Thank you for the studio, and most importantly, thank you, Father God, for giving us the resilience, the tenacity, the courage, and the strength, even though we had a terrible journey here. Father God has given us the courage and the tenacity to see this through. So from the therapy spot, thank you and peace out.